Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a wonderful couple that I've had the pleasure of knowing for a number of years. This couple is a God-fearing couple who works very diligently, very hard on their marriage to try to make it as successful and as exciting and sustaining as they possibly can. And we need a whole lot more of that in this world today as we deal with so many marriages falling apart at the seams, but this couple is the epitome of what it looks like to put forth your best foot forward in that process. And while no marriage is perfect, they do an excellent job, again, as working as partners in it. And of course, making sure that God is a part of that model of marriage, because we can't expect a successful marriage with leaving God out of the picture. If you don't know that, you're going to find out about that in this episode. So without any further delay, let me introduce to you Q and Kat Bruce. Q and Kat, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And to my audience, again, we had a little technical difficulties in the beginning. We apologize for that, but we're going to get this show started. So before we jump into our segments, I do want to give you both, Q and Kat, an opportunity just to share a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, what you do. Just give everybody a little intro to yourselves before we jump into our segment. So I'll start with you, Kat. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I go by Kat, but my name is Kathlena Bruce. And a little bit about myself. Well, I work in the dentistry field. I've been doing that for about, maybe 19 years now so far. Where I work in office doing a lot of the claims and things like that. I eventually ventured off in creating my own business as an entrepreneur, doing claims for the doctors, on my own. So decided to do that. But other than that, I'm a wife to Q, mom of 4 children, 20, 16, 10, and 6. I have to figure the age. Sometimes
Right.
you get so many you forget how old they are. But yes, so I sing a little bit. That's pretty much it. That's all I got.
All right. And of course, I know you both, of course, here in Dallas. Where are you originally from?
I am originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I came to the DFW area back in 2009. So I've been here for a little bit and definitely love it here. I love it here.
Awesome. And for my listeners, you heard Kat speak about, she sings a little bit. She's being a little modest about that. I sing a little bit stuff. She sings a lot of bits. She's kind of got a voice on her. She's just trying to be a little shy and modest right now, but I'm just putting it out there. The sister can sing. So, we're not going to downplay her skills. She got some vocal skills to bring to the table. So Mr. Q, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Quadir Bruce. I go by Q to make everyone's life easier. I, too, am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm a compliance officer at a mortgage company, so I just make sure we follow all the regulations that deal with mortgage servicing, just to make sure we don't get fined and put out of business. So that's what I do on a daily basis. I have been in DFW since 2011, so over 12 years now. I too really love being here. It's one of the best decisions that I've made was to move here. So very glad to be here. Let's see. In my spare time, I love to lift weights. So going to the gym is a huge part of my life. Being healthy, exercising. I used to be a personal trainer, but I don't really do that anymore. But I do, have some meal plan clients that I work with. So I still get to kind of help people in that area. And I think that's pretty much it.
That's good stuff. And just as I got on Kat earlier, my brother, he talked about, I lift weights, he kind of said that real casually, like, this brother's like, Yeah, right. He's like the Hulk up in here, he lift all of us at the same time with one hand. So, I'm just gonna put him out there too, since I put his
Oh,
wife out there, I gotta get on him too a little bit, just being modest about it. The brother he's a health machine, physically and and in all aspects of his life. So which is a good thing because you need that. And I wish I had the discipline that he had in that area of his life. So good stuff, good stuff. So again, today our focus on the podcast is all about marriage. So we're gonna, utilizing you, of course, in your journey in marriage to kind of help us navigate, all the areas that we need to know about, marriage that is essential for a marriage to be sustaining, to be healthy, to maintain, especially during those difficult and challenging times. But as with any story, and I say this about any of the shows that I do, you can't really talk about that journey unless you go back to the beginning, and that's what we're going to do in terms of the two of you as a couple. So, my first question to you is, if you would please share with us, how did the two of you meet, and what was it? At what point in that meet and greet and the courting and the dating and all of that you finally came to the realization, what, I don't want to just date you anymore, I think we want to do this thing for life? What kind of walk us through what that journey was that led from the meeting one another to ultimately deciding to commit for life in marriage?
I'm gonna let you take
Let
this one
me
away.
take it.
Yeah, you take it
Okay.
away.
So we met in high school. In high school, we went to the same high school. I saw him first. So, it was the second semester of our sophomore year is when I went to Washington High School. And I remember coming up the stairs and around the corner, and he had a football uniform on. I love football, but he had a football uniform on, and all I remember seeing is his smile, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he has such a nice smile, as a young girl, and that was that moment. But I would say a little bit time later, we saw each other, or I saw him again in my dance class. He was the drummer because he plays the djembe drum for our class. And I just saw how passionate he was about what he was doing. And it was attractive to me. He was focused, he was paying attention, and he just seemed really passionate about playing that drum and that made me feel some type of way. So, after class, we ended up talking. He walked me to class, and we just kind of got to know each other, on that level. So that was how we kind of first met each other. Um, of course, life happens, and we did date for a little while. We ran track together. What else did we do? We ran track together, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so we connected there. We had a lot of similarities. He was very, just very sweet to me, and very, uh, I don't know, accommodating, just very warm. Like I felt something, but I was so young, so I didn't really know what it was I was feeling. But I just knew that he was such a good person, and I always considered him my best friend after that. So a slight friend zone, but you know, uh,
Nope. So let me take over let me take over because now, all right, don't. I'm not gonna
oh,
let you off the hook.
oh no.
So it's no slight friend zone. So
We
we,
dated
like
for a
she
little while.
said, we dated, but then she broke up with me, um, because I was an athlete and stuff like that, but I wasn't, like the super popular, coolest guy. You know what I'm saying? So all the girls, they want that guy, right? So, but she didn't tell me that was gonna happen, but that eventually happened. She ended up with a cooler guy, and so then that's junior year when we dated. Senior year, so all summer I'm thinking about her, like, oh man, I miss Kat. I want to be with her when we get to school. Senior year, I'm about to just pour my heart out. I'm gonna get her back. Nope. I do it. She like, I got a boyfriend. I was devastated. I said, oh,
No.
somebody help me. Somebody help me. Somebody help me. I was just devastated. But, Yeah, hey, look, I went through that pain. I know. But
Yeah,
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 so it was, I really did get put in the friend zone. But in a serious note though, we really truly were best friends, like she said, and we were able to talk to each other um in a way that I feel like a lot of teenagers, with the amount of depth and maturity, teenagers usually don't do that. It's usually just goofing off all the time. But we were able to really open up to each other and share things with each other that I didn't necessarily do with other people. I was a person who people always could confide in and things like that. So I kind of had reps at doing that, but just where it was like mutual, where I'm sharing too, and I'm really feeling this bond, with the person that's special outside of anyone else. We really kind of laid that foundation at that time in high school, and then I went to college in Illinois, and Kat stayed in Milwaukee, and she went to college. So we went our separate ways. And then she eventually got married. So, how old were you?
I was 21. I had my son first, so I had a kid, and then I married his father, and so that's when I was like 21 years old, at that time. Um, and we, kind of kept in touch when I was in college. Like I would say, my first year, we would email each other. We never really saw each other, but we would email each other just to see how each other was doing, and that was pretty much it. We kind of didn't keep too much in contact
Yeah,
during that time. So I got married. I was married for I think 5 years. I don't think I made it to the 6 years. So yeah, for 5 years to my older children's father, and that was just not a relationship I should have been in, but I was, and so it didn't go too well. So eventually, I ended up filing for divorce. I was about 27 or 28, 27, I think, when I did that. Um, and I called him. I called him and I told him, I filed for divorce. Like I had to get away. And it was a situation where it was not safe for me, and so I could always trust him that, I could, again, we built that foundation to talk to each other and um, just told him everything I was going through. A lot of the stuff he probably couldn't believe because the type of person he thought I was probably didn't think I would go through something like that or, put myself in that type of a situation um, from what he knew of me. So, you know, went through that whole process. I ended up getting divorced and just decided to move on. I was single for a little while, but, I ended up telling him that. And so we started talking, and dating from there. Mm-hmm.
Awesome,
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So, that was 2010 when
Mm-hmm.
she called me. So, I never thought that I would hear from her again. So, it was surprising and shocking, to say the least. But it's just like we picked up like where we left off. Like all the feelings I had for her just kind of came, rushing back. And I knew once she explained what she was going through, I knew that she needed a friend at that particular time. She didn't need, a boyfriend or whatever, so I wanted to be there for her just to help her go through the process, because when you file, that's the file, but it got to be finalized. You got to wait, you got to do all these things, go to court, whatever the case may be. So it's a process, not only with that, but just the separation period and mentally processing all of that and everything she had been through. So it was a lot. So I just wanted to be there as her friend. And so I was. And we got to a point where we decided to kind of make it official dating towards the end of October of 2010. And then 2011 came like around January, February time. We both it was crazy that we were on the same page, but we were having a conversation, and I said to her, I said, I really need to be with you, like physically, because I was in Milwaukee and she was in Texas. So I'm like, we're basically at a crossroads. Either we're going to be together in the same place and try to make this thing work, or we need to go our separate ways because it's just too painful. Like loving you so much and not being able to be with you like physically and build a life like the long distance was just real tough. And so we were on the same page. She was like, yeah, I feel the same way. So end of February 2011, I moved here, and I've been here since. So she really is what brought me here. So, but we can go on and on. I know we
It's a
got a
lot
lot, a
more.
lot of
Oh
segments
no,
left,
that's
but
this good. That's good.
that's
It's good stuff. I mean, and that's why I
a
was
quick
saying,
version.
yeah, that's why I was saying awesome earlier. Not some. It's not obviously it's not awesome to go through divorce and and having to deal with long distance and all of that. It's just even in the early stages of you sharing your story. I just think it's really interesting how your paths began, and then you kind of drifted apart, and then you went totally different directions, and then you come back together again. And it's like, and I don't think that was an accident. I think that in that early stages of your life, it may not have been a good, even though you all were attracted to one another, it may not have been a good time for you all to officially connect early on. Maybe due to maturity levels, maybe due to just really understanding what mattered and what didn't in terms of your significant others. So we never know why we go through what we go through, but clearly it was destined in the path for the two of you to reconnect. And the theme that I've been hearing all along up to this point is just the fact that you really established a true, what it seems like a true authentic friendship with each other. Yeah, we know there's physical attraction and everything, but I've heard more about you just learning and growing with one another as friends, and connecting maintaining that connected bond with one another. So even as Kat was coming out of a divorce, the idea that she thought of you first, and she spoke to it like, I thought of him because I felt safe with him. I felt I could pour into him what I was dealing with right now. And you didn't, and in your response to it, I mean, there would have been a lot of brothers who their immediate response, where they might have been licking their chops like, okay, I got her in a vulnerable moment. This is my time to strike. But I didn't
Exactly.
sense that from you. I felt like you genuinely received her in where she was and her vulnerability in that moment. You maintained that friendship. You were genuinely trying to be there for her. And then, of course, as time goes on, like you said, the feelings do start eventually to come back up, and they really never went away. They were just more
Right.
suppressed
That's
as
it. That's
anything.
the thing right
Yeah, it was
there.
just more. They were really more suppressed. But I like the maturity factor that you played in that role, in the sense of just being her friend, because that's what she needed right now. She didn't need a rebound moment. She
Right.
didn't need because she's processing everything that she had just gone through, and there's a healing that goes with that. And you gave her that space to do that, and before taking that step forward and saying, okay, this may be my second chance to see if perhaps there's more to this, and where I can get back up out of this friend zone, and perhaps doing something a little next level here with
It's like you were there,
I
Joseph.
know
It's like you
your
were there.
recap. Your
It's
recap is
beautiful.
on point
It's
because
on point.
I want to throw this in there. You made a very good point, and that's when you said he didn't try to like pounce. You know what I mean?
hmm
He was very patient. He listened, and that drew me even closer to him because
hmm
I was at a point in my life where I was fine either way. If I do this, I'm fine because I was drawing closer to God
hmm
at that point in my life. And I said, as long as I have the Lord, I don't need anything to fulfill. God is fulfilling me. He is fulfilling me. And we were just so transparent and upfront with each other. I'm like, I have two kids, got a little baggage here. If this is what you're wanting in your life, let me know. If it's not, it's okay. I wouldn't fault him if that's not something he wanted to step into. But he was so confident and so sure of himself, and that let me know, yes, I'm all in. I didn't hold anything back. He didn't hold anything back. We were all in, and
and that's
so.
That's good stuff. I mean, even to, like I said, even to the dynamic of having children.
Yeah.
She comes back to you, but she came back to you different than she
Hmm.
left you. She wasn't a mother when she left you. Now
Right.
she's a mother. Now she's a divorcee. Every brother can't step up in those situations and accept, those circumstances. They may feel some kind of way. They may be a little, standoffish to that, or may not even want to play that at all. But again, your maturity obviously was at a point, and to where you were able to, again, meet her where she was, understand what she came with, but not hold it against her as a negative, or as a mark against her. It was like,
Right.
okay, I was your friend first, and so I accept you for, for your beauty, as well as your flaws. And I mean, that's a part of what, that's one of those components of a successful marriage, is that we have to understand that none of us are perfect. We
Right.
have our flaws. We have our, our setbacks, our letdown moments, all of those things. And so I need to know that my partner, again, that's where we talk about that unconditional love, that I can, that you take me for, again, all my scars, all my bruises, all my bumps and lumps, and you still love me anyway. Cause
Yeah.
that's a part of that sustaining that marriage. So I love the way that, this is, has kicked off, and in that regard, and how the two of you just sort of navigated that path, if you will, to reconnect and reestablish, and again, not rush into it,
Right.
giving each other that space that you needed to give, but at the same time, just taking the baby steps, if you will, that's necessary to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So obviously, you make this connection, Q, you take this leap of faith and you pack your bags and move, cross country, feeling like, okay, I think this is worth me doing. And obviously it's paid off, because you, of course, would ultimately make that decision to become a married couple, and, walk down that aisle and do the whole honeymoon and all that good stuff. But anybody that's been married before understands that, while it's great to plan the beautiful wedding and the dress and the reception and all that good stuff and the honeymoon, just like with anything, once that high comes down a little bit, then it's like, okay, this is for real. This is the this is lifelong. The newness, if you will, starts to sprinkle off a little bit, and you kind of sink into the reality of, okay, this is the real deal. Like I said, what I did to get her is what I had to do to keep her, and vice versa. So as we venture off into your marriage, again, there's going to be high points and low points, but I'm curious to know. Um, Tell us about a time when, in the midst of your marriage journey, where you faced a situation that the two of you were really, whether it was you being at odds about it, or just simply, you don't even, it doesn't even have to be something that you were at odds with, just a situation that came about in your marriage, that when this happened, the two of you were wondering, how am I going to, how are we going to pull this off? How are we going to make it through this particular situation? Because sometimes in our marriages, there's some weights, there's some burdens that come across our path that it hits a little different, and it's not just an easy, quick fix, and it can test the strength of your marriage in some instances. So, if you would, as you reflect back on this question, you kind of tell us about a time when you were faced with that type of situation, and what was that journey like, and what did you ultimately have to do to overcome the challenge that was before you?
Yeah, so we'll share the story of getting our first home.
Okay.
So I'll set kind of the backdrop leading into it. So in 2012, we moved into a townhome. It was a 3 bedroom. So at the time, it was just four of us, me, Kat, and our two older kids. They each had their own room, a lot of space, wonderful. We had Quadri, our number three. We had him in 2013, and he was in the room with us. But then, rent goes up every year. Salaries don't keep pace. So we had to make a tough decision to leave the townhome and go into an apartment.
Two bedroom.
Right. And so then the apartment was 2 bedrooms. So now the two older kids are sharing a room, and then Quadri's still with us. And so this is like February of 2015. So now we're in this small apartment. It's cramped and we're trying to make the best of it, but it's tough. And then at some point in there, her cousin came and moved in with us as well. And so now we have another person in this 2-bedroom apartment. So we're like, man, we need a house. This is not going to work. Our family's growing. The older kids, especially since it's one boy and one girl, they need their own room. Like there was just this pressure to make a move because it was a need, right? And so we start looking for homes. You're talking to banks, and it's just like, no, 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 your credit is horrible. She had a foreclosure on her record. I had a judgment on my record from a student loan. I had to take a private student loan in order to finish college. And I wasn't able to pay it, when I graduated. So I had defaulted and then even went into judgment stage. So we got all these things, all these obstacles in our way that's stopping us. So the immediate answer to buying a home is no. On top of, we don't have a lot of money anyway. We don't have 20, 30,000 for a down payment. We don't have any of this. So there's this need there, and the answer at the forefront is a no. But we, like you said, we love the Lord and follow the Lord. So our faith in Him, was tested, but it was also where we had to tap into that in a way that we probably hadn't had to up until that point. And God just showed out throughout that entire process. So He brought a person, one of our brothers at the church, Steve Ellison. He was a credit repair. He did that like on the side. And we actually worked at the same mortgage company at the time. And he did credit repair on the side. So he, without charging us or anything, just took us in and showed us how to repair our credit, just sat down, looked at our finances, said, you need to do this, this, this. We did everything he said. Boom, credit shot up. As far as the foreclosure piece, we just decided to put the home in my name because there was nothing we can do about that to get that off her record. So that's how we circumvented that. And then as far as the judgment, her uncle stepped in and said, hey, I'm going to gift y'all this amount. We settled with the people and got it at significantly less to where the gift was able to take care of that. And so we knocked that out the way. Then my wife, when it comes to research, she is private investigator #1. So she was able to find down payment assistance program. Since it was just me, she did the leg work on the research. I had to do the leg work on filling out all the papers and stuff. So on my breaks at work, I'm on the computer, I'm filling out this thing, submitting this thing, and we got the down payment assistance. And then we couldn't afford the homes in Carrollton because at the time they were going for 2 and 3 and maybe even 4. And this is 2016, so we couldn't afford that. So that's what brought us to Fort Worth. And we found a home for $155. That's what we was able to afford at the time. And it's crazy how God works because we had gotten outbid on several other properties. The property we ended up with was one that we saw early on in the process, but we kind of liked some of the other ones better. We got turned down for all of those, and then I went back and looked and saw that this property was still available, and it was a Fannie Mae foreclosure, so they kind of handled those a little different. So it was there still. We went, we saw it, we liked it, boom, we got it. And then, the rest is history. On that July 2016, we moved into our first home. And so there were plenty of times during that situation where, like I said, we felt this is impossible and it was tough. And we're in this cramped apartment. And in the beginning, all we heard was no, 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 no. And so you're dealing with that. And it was very tough, but what we did was just kept our faith in God. We remained one, and did not blame each other. You came over here with this foreclosure. You came over here with this judgment. Your credit jacked up. Well, your credit jacked up too. You bad with money. You none of that. It was just, here's a problem. How do we fix the problem? And we just continued to attack that thing to where it went from a huge, boulder to it became a pebble, and then it was dust because we was in the house. So we had fully conquered that thing. And so that was a very trying time. We were in that apartment for basically a year and a half, but God did it.
Yeah.
So anything to add on that?
No, that was a tough time, but like he said, we had faith and just executed. When we work together, and we see the common goal, and we're deciding to work together at this thing instead of pointing fingers at each other.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to accomplish it. You know, I just thank God for somebody who wants to stay and be on the same team, and that's not selfish, and just thinking about himself or whatnot. So it was pure teamwork, you know.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And what I want people who have an opportunity to hear your episode to understand is, yeah, we know that in the end we got the house and it's a beautiful, happy ending. But what makes the marriage union so powerful, so impactful, is when you reflect back on the journeys, and
That's it.
and you connect with that. The fact that we're not just talking about husband and wife in a marriage. We're talking about husband, wife, and God in a marriage, because
That's it.
anybody listening to this understand that what this story that you just heard, this wasn't, oh, they were lucky. This wasn't, oh, they just happened upon, they got a hookup, or when you're in that type of situation and you're trying to buy a home or trying to do any type of major financial decision, the no's are a very real part of it, and it could very easily get extremely discouraging. You could very easily fall into the traps of, as you spoke to, like pointing fingers at one another. Oh, you brought this into this situation. Now you got us all messed up, or you did this. The blame game, the pointing the fingers, the anger, the frustrations, just even the living conditions that you all were in with all up on top of each other. That in itself can wear your patience thin. And so I love the fact that here you were in this situation. And again, even the situation in itself as it was, I don't think that was an accident. I don't think it was. God has a way, if you will, and I know I'm speaking to the choir in this sense, but God has a way, if you will, of sometimes allowing your space to sort of cave in on you, if you will, to kind of and it's not to hurt you, it's not to harm you in any way, but sometimes it's necessary for him to do that with us in our lives every now and then, to level us up, to remind us that he's in control, that he's able, that he's capable of any and everything. And so he has to, allow for an environment to appear to the world as being impossible, but he's trusting in you to trust in him, to say, hey, all I want you to do is turn this over to me and let me handle it and watch me move in your life. So I move in terms of bringing you somebody that's not only help you to get your credit right, but they're not going to even charge you for it, which again, that's not normal, people. I'm going to set everything up to where you're going to get the financial assistance that you need for down payments. We know that there's a lot of programs out there, but even with all the programs out there, there's no guarantees that you're going to get that money. But hey, I'm
Right.
going to make a way for that kind of stuff to happen. I'm going to allow you to look at a house that you initially pass up, knowing that in these days and times, even back then, yeah, you can skip over a house if you like and let some time go by and try to go back and watch it already be gone. But no, he
Exactly.
meant for that house to be yours. He put it to the side and waited for you to deal with, look at all the other stuff, you know, and when it was time for you to come back, and the house that he meant for you to be in was going to be there and waiting and ready for you, and it was going to be set up in such a way. You said the procedures and everything are a little bit different when you're talking about, purchasing a foreclosed home, things of that nature. So it was all specifically designed to get you exactly what you needed, where you're going to ultimately have the space that you wanted, in a desirable neighborhood, in a home that you were comfortable in. You didn't feel like you had to settle. You said you loved the home. That's just how God moves. And so it's a testament to him, but it's also a testament to why in marriage, in difficult and challenging times, as you spoke of here, you can't give up. You can't give in. You have to trust in God to lead the way, and you have to unite as a team, because as husband and wife, that's exactly what you are. You are a team, and that's what you all did. You said, you know what? We're not going to point fingers. We're not going to blame. We're going to lock arms together, and we're going to fight. We're going to fight our way through this. We're going to faith our way through this. And
Right. Right.
and in the end, you got your blessing. You got your
Yeah.
blessing. Your needs were met, and then probably in some instances exceeded.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but
Every time.
that's exactly how he works. That's exactly how he navigates, and that's why, for our listeners, that's why God has to be a part of your marriage, because some things in life, in marriage, they're just going to be too big for you. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
who you know, how much you think you know, how much money you think you got. There's just some obstacles out there. There's some challenges in life that are just going, some storms that are just going to be bigger than you, and that's okay. But
Right.
we have a God that these same storms, these same obstacles, these same barriers are not too big for him. And as long as you're leaning into calling on him, trusting in him to be your, navigate that path for you, again, anything is possible. And this is just one of many examples that, married couples who have God and as the head of their marriages, this is what you experience. This is what you go through. My wife and I had a similar experience when purchasing our first home, things that played out the way that they were not supposed to play out.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to happen. And it happened. I distinctly remember, just share real quick. Our first home, we were living in Indianapolis at the time, and we were interested in a lot that was on at the head of the cul-de-sac in our neighborhood. It was considered a prime lot, and so they charge you $3,000 extra for that. And I remember sitting in the office, me and my wife were sitting in the office, and the lady is plugging in all of the options and everything, and it gets to the prime lot option, and she's clicking the button to charge us the 3,000, and the computer won't charge us the 3,000. It kept defaulting to the regular price, and she clicked it, and she clicked it, and she clicked it, and it wouldn't do it. And so finally, she's like, "Well, I guess I'm just have to charge you the regular price for the lot because it won't let me charge you the $3,000." And thank God, because our limit in terms of our financing, had we actually gotten charged that 3,000, it would have taken us over that. But
Wow.
because it stayed put, we were just right under where our cap was with everything else that we had option wise. But that's just one, one little example of that. And again, credit wasn't great. We didn't have a big stash of money or a family that we could just, hey, can you loan us X number of dollars? We didn't have none of that either. But God worked that thing out, and we had us a beautiful home and a great neighborhood, and we were newly married and all of that. So I mean, that's just how God moves. It's just it's just what he does.
Right.
So I love hearing stories like this, and because I identify with them, because I've been there
Right.
with that. I know what that feels like, and I know, again, that God is able. So wonderful, wonderful sharing of that
Amen.
story. So when the two of you do find yourself, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but just in general, when you find yourself at an impasse, whether it's, something as big as what you just shared, or if it's just small stuff where, you're on opposite ends of the spectrum on this discussion, or what may even be for lack of a better word, an argument. We see it completely different. When you find yourself at opposite ends of a decision, or your viewpoints on a discussion, or whatever, that's something that you have to reach a solution on, but you aren't currently seeing eye to eye. I'm curious to know, in your marriage journey, what is your process when you find yourself, bumping heads, if you will, on making a decision, or coming to a mutual agreement on something where you actually individually, you're kind of seeing it completely different. How do you all work through such moments to where you're able to, again, process those challenging times?
Um, I would say, in those situations, I don't want to say it like this, but somebody sometimes has to take the L.
Hmm.
Somebody, because everything obviously can't mutually be agreed upon. But it's a lot of sacrifice, I feel, that goes along with being in a marriage. And if one way just makes more sense, and it's, for example, if it's the way that he lays it out and it's just more practical and it makes more sense than what I may come up with, I mean, I might have to sit this one out and just trust what he's saying, for that moment. And then vice versa, if I, bring it to him, hey, this is going to work better if we do X, Y, and Z because X, Y, and Z, because we're talking it out, but we both kind of have to bring our ideas or, whatnot to see what will work best. And so I think you have to be okay, or with us, we have to be okay with not always it going our way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of some examples of what we've been through. Can you think of something that we?
The thing is, we don't really come to impasses a lot, but
We don't.
we do because that's pretty strong. Like you say, you way on the opposite side, but we do have disagreements and things like that at times. Um, I can't think of a example right now. Maybe one will come to me, but what I was going to say is that what we do, I mean, what she was basically describing is essentially compromise,
Mm-hmm.
right? But behind that is what drives that is the fact that we care more about each other and we care more about being one than we do about being right.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the constant within our marriage.
Mm.
So when we do come to an impasse or we're disagreeing or whatever, we want to get back to oneness as soon as possible. And we've gotten better over the years. Like when in the beginning, we would let something linger 2, 3 days a week. Like we'd be mad at each other. We say we got to say, go our separate ways. And now it's lingering. We're to the point now that we won't go 24 hours. Like we're going to have the conversation relatively quickly, to try to get back on that oneness. So we had to grow into that. A lot of ego had to die for that, and that's attributable to God, raising the fruits in the spirit in us and lessening the flesh, and growing over time to be able to get to that point. But that's what drives that compromise is that we want to get back to oneness and back to harmony as soon as we can. Because you were going to say
Yeah.
something.
So like he's more OCD than I am.
I
Joseph,
am.
he's very OCD, very clean. 'Cause if you look at his closet, everything's together, put together. You look at mine, things are kind of everywhere. Not really, but kind of. And so, you know, I think a part of that is we kind of let each other be too, like when it comes to things like that. Like he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
criticize why everything's everywhere. My shoes are up here and this is over here. He lets me kind of be, and although I could be more organized with my closet, just as an example, um, he doesn't like judge me in that way. So like
Mm-hmm.
we're two different people in that, the vanity of the sink. Of course, my stuff is spilling over to his side. He'll
I
look
feel you,
at it.
brother. I feel you, brother.
Yeah. I think that's
My
all of our
my closet is about this
reality.
big. And
I
Yeah.
yours is
said,
about this big.
Yeah.
y'all be
I think we
dramatic.
all go through it.
No, but I said, okay, he's just so sweet and so nice. He don't yell at me for my stuff being over his side. So I said, let me just go ahead and put my stuff on my side and keep it that way for a while and notice that makes him feel good. The
Mm-hmm.
type of people we are, I think, because we always want to serve each other. How can I make you better? How can he feels that way about me? And that has a lot to do with our personality traits. So I know that's not common in a lot of marriages. Everybody's different with that. But, we do a lot of compromising. We do a lot of compromising. Like we said, we don't try to let things linger for more than 24 hours. If it's something, we trying to talk it out and discuss it out, no matter how we're feeling about it. And like he said, we did mature over the years with that because some things sting a little. Like, I don't want to do it
Mm-hmm.
that way. But if that's going to work, then let's sit back and see if your way work. If it don't, then let's try it this way now, type of thing.
Right, right. And I love that approach. Like you said, marriage, again, it is about there's going to be some levels of compromise that has to go on. And, and you can't be in a marriage and expect to always have it your way every single time.
Yeah.
But I love what you spoke of, Q, when you said, um, it's more important for the two of you to be one in whatever decision that you come up with versus one or the other being right, because that's unfortunately that's a thing that a lot of marriages struggle with is everybody's trying to be right.
Hmm.
I want to be right and I want to prove that you were wrong, almost like as if I'm smart and you're not, or I make better decisions and you don't. And it's really not about that. And so I love your approach in that regard, that you don't treat even the difficult decisions, those impasse moments. You don't let it linger. You've gotten to the point where we're not gonna let this thing marinate for days and weeks at a time, where I'm in my feelings and I ain't talking to you and I'm ignoring you and all of that. No, let's nip this thing in the bud. We're clearly at odds on this. Let's find some kind of common ground. And when we find that common ground, I don't make that other person feel like, well, I'll let you get this one, so the next time it's mine, or anything like that. We went with the best, what we thought was the best decision in that moment. We compromised, and like you said, I know, Kat, you used the phrase about sometimes we got to take that L, but in a godly marriage, the L is not I lost.
Right.
I take the L. The L, to me, the L represents love. Because I
Right.
love you and because I trust you. Even if, I thought we should go a different angle with this, I love you and trust you enough that, I'm willing to concede on this one, knowing that even if I go your way and your way doesn't work, I know that you went that direction with the best intentions, with,
Right.
with what you thought was best for us as a unit, versus again it just being about me being right and you being wrong, or me having my way and you not. And so I love the dynamic of what you're doing. And again, for anybody that's listening, that's the approach that you have to have. It can't be it can't just be about my way or the highway, or I'm the man and everything I say goes, or or because I make more money everything says goes, or because I'm this, or because those kind of little Mickey Mouse games that you play, that'll kill a marriage. That'll make it a very unhappy space to be in.
Yes. Mickey Mouse games.
Mickey
That's
Mouse
hilarious.
games, man. I mean,
That's
like,
hilarious.
again, it's like, are we gonna be kids about this? Or are we gonna be mature adults about this?
Right. Amen.
And so that's very critical. That again, you have that spirit of compromise, that you're willing to trust one another. And even if I side with your decision, hey, I know you meant well. I know you got the best intentions. We're gonna roll with it this way this time around for you. And I'm doing that in love and in trusting in your decision on this one. I'm good with that. It doesn't always have to be my way, but what's most important is that we are a united front. And
Right.
it's even going back to your story earlier about how you proceeded with the home. You had to make a decision. Okay, let me put this in my name because of the foreclosure issue. Well, she could have very easily been like, well, we ain't getting no house if my name ain't on it, because
Exactly.
you ain't gonna be
Right.
holding over my head about this your house and da 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 da, because we know that
Yeah.
that kind of thing happens.
It does.
But you all
Yeah.
didn't. She trusted and loved you enough to know that, hey, he's not going to use this as an opportunity to, the minute he get mad at me or the minute he disagree with me, well, this is my house, my name is on the mortgage, and if you don't like it, you can. He's not playing that kind of game. It's not a thing that he's going to use to as leverage over you to just have his way.
Right.
I made that decision because it was the best decision for us as the collective, not because I'm trying to put controls in place so I can, do whatever I want to do, or have it my way all the time. So these are the kind of things that are necessary for a healthy and sustaining marriage. So again, I love the way you all approach handling impasses and challenging moments, and the fact that you acknowledge that, hey, we didn't just have this thing figured out the day we said I do. There's been a
Right.
process that we've gotten better at. It used
Yeah.
to be 3 or 4 days with us being mad at each other.
Right.
We got it down to 24 hours, or less. It's a process. And that again, that goes into the journey of what the marriage, that marriage life is all about. So with that said, and I think this is an excellent segue into this. As I said at the top of the show, unfortunately, we are in a day and time where, a lot of marriages are falling by the wayside. There's plenty of stats out there that speak to that. More than 50% of marriages are failing, and there was a time back in the day that it used to just be either because somebody was cheating or because it was a money issue. Now it's gotten to the point where we get into a disagreement about just the most minute of things, and we're just ready to just give up and let it all go and just, I'm out of here. It's done. It's over with. So with that said, as a married couple who, again, has had your share of good times and challenging moments and all of that, I would love for you to offer up some words of encouragement to somebody who might be listening that is in a marriage situation, and perhaps whatever is going on in that marriage, they're actually at that point to where they're ready to throw in the towel, that they're ready to just walk away and let this marriage be yet another marriage that comes to an end because they don't want to fight for it anymore. They're tired of fighting for it. They don't see any purpose in fighting for it anymore. What would be your words of encouragement if you had an opportunity to speak right? Well, you're going to get this opportunity right now to speak to somebody who might be at that point right now. They're ready to give up on their marriage. What would you say to them that would give them reason why they should not give up?
Yeah, there are so many things, but I would start with if God hasn't been in the marriage or he hasn't been at the head of the marriage, I would say start there. So, you take an inventory, and people know that. And if you're honest with yourself, have you guys been following God? Has the Bible and what it says about marriage, but just um, what Christ-like character is just in general? Have you been using that as a guideline and trying to grow into that and implement that? If you haven't, then that's really the source of the problem anyway, because the flesh is running the show and not, your new man, if you're even saved, right? So it starts with God. And if the answer is no, he either hasn't been in this at all, or he hasn't been in it to the level that he should be, then I would say take steps to increase that together. So what that could look like is going to church together, getting in Bible studies together, getting in a marriage group, seeking godly marriage counseling, getting around other married couples who love the Lord, who have had some success in their marriages that you can, learn from, that you can pick their brains, that you can just be around and just get inspiration, right? So I would say doing all of those things will kind of help you grow in Christ. And um, as individuals are, as you are shaped more into the image of Christ, you're going to be able to implement what he says we ought to do in marriage, right? So the husband is to love his wife like Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. So we need to love her. And then there's, in Ephesians breaks down love, all the different points of what it is and what it isn't. But we're supposed to love her, but we're supposed to sacrifice for her, right? So we're always supposed to be in that position to where we're willing to do whatever it takes for our wife, to serve her in whatever capacity that means, right? There are different buckets in life, whether it's health, whether it's, job wise, whether it's physically, whatever, but that our positioning is sacrificial, right? You can get into that once you understand it. And then once you're close enough to God that you're allowing him to shape you into that. And the wife is supposed to, submit to her husband and respect her husband. So again, the Holy Spirit can help her be conformed into that. And once you, the closer you can get to the image of Christ, and you can do what he says to do, which is obedience, the closer you'll get to having that successful marriage, because that's what it takes. He gives us the blueprint, but it's impossible without first knowing what the word says, and then secondly, being having the Holy Spirit in you, because we can't do any of that stuff in the flesh. You gotta have the Holy Spirit within you to even carry out what God says we're supposed to do. So that's a ton of stuff I said, but that's all like the God side of it. Practically, you could reflect on why you married the person in the first place. So, kind of what we answered in the beginning, what drew you to that person? Reflect on good times. Just all the different reasons why you fell in love and why you still do love that person. And then you can put on the other side, what are some things you don't like? What's hurting you, right? And kind of compare those lists. And there will be times where the negative list far outweighs the positive, and if that's the case, you can make your decision. But and there will be cases where the positive far outweighs the negative, but what happens is the negative is heavier and the negative may be more recent. So you have that recency bias, and since the negative is so painful, it makes you think that the whole marriage was bad when really it probably wasn't. So doing that exercise individually and also as couples can kind of help reignite some of those feelings and give you that fuel, but also help you make a practical decision on if this is something we want to continue to pursue, or is it so bad and so much damage has been done that we need to let it go. So I'll shut up. You have
No,
anything
keep
else to
talking.
add?
No,
Um,
that's and I am curious. Before you go, I am curious to hear. Well, first of all, good stuff that you said, Q. But I am also curious to hear what Kat says, because Kat, you can speak to this from a different perspective, having gone through a divorce. I me I also have experienced what it is to go through a divorce before, and if you've never experienced that, and Kat, you tell me if I'm off base with this, but when you go through a divorce, it's not like breaking up with your girlfriend or your boyfriend. It's like, when you think about the vows and we talk about the two becoming one, when you go through a divorce, it emotionally what it feels like is like you being ripped apart from that person that you've become one with. We know that technically you're not fleshly being torn apart, but
right.
emotionally and mentally that's what it feels like you're literally being ripped apart. And so, when we just talking about when this question about, you thinking about divorcing, I don't know if people really understand. This is not just, like I was joking earlier, I quit you. We don't go together no more. This
Yeah,
different. This hits different.
Yeah.
So
way
I
different.
am curious to your perspective, Kat. And sharing, why should somebody try to fight for this? Because you've gone through that, and you gave marriage a second try. Which, when you go through a divorce, you got every reason to not want to do it again.
Oh,
You can come up with a whole bunch of reasons why. Nah, I'm good.
yeah.
The one and done was enough. I'm not trying to potentially repeat the same or perhaps even worse than what the
Right.
first go around was, because then I'm gonna feel like I'm even a bigger fool this time around, or I'm putting myself through more, undue pain and suffering and then
Uh-oh.
of
Okay.
chance left to fight for
Yeah.
that marriage. What would your perspective be on that?
Man. Yes, you're on point. You're on point. It is devastating to go through a divorce. Uh, whether it was you that decided to file or the other person. Absolute devastation. Um, in my case, I went through abuse. I went through abuse in all the forms. And so that Even in the midst of that, I still tried and tried to be successful in it. Even though that is definitely a reason spiritually, to ask for a divorce. I still tried to work through that, and I know there are couples who have worked through that and have succeeded. Um, in my case, that wasn't doable. So, like, I understand when people get to that point, but, I think it's very important to kind of piggyback on what my husband was saying, you know, what drew you to each other, because I feel like it gets lost depending on what the issue is, because there's so many different issues. People can be like, well, what if you do this? Or what if you do that? And what you can say that all day long, but just to kind of give a general statement, are y'all dating each other? You know, are y'all coming together to know each other, as often as you can? Because that's a whole spiritual thing.
Hmm.
Marriage is ordained by God. And I think it's important to stay close to each other, um, and not to, go so many days without talking, or so many days without, you haven't took me out on a date in 3 months. What? Like, we have to continue to pursue each other. We have to continue to see what the other person is needing. Because when you're both doing that, there's nothing left to, like, pick up or whatever. If it's something I'm needing and you're there, if it's something you're needing and I'm there, we're fulfilling each other's needs or voids or whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's very important, but sometimes, you have different seasons, and I just want to throw this out there. Like, I'm getting older, as a woman, and we go through different changes in our moods, in our attitudes, and what we desire and what we like. What if he's used to what I like all the time, and that's not what I like anymore? And he might feel,
Hmm.
well, you don't like me because this is what I used to do for you, and this is how you acted when I used to do, So we have to be willing to be patient when each other change, have changes, or our likes, or desires change, because we're not always going to remain the same, in the marriage, and
Hmm.
we're going to evolve in some type of way. And we have to be patient with each other as we go through our seasons, because yes, we are still individual people, but I just feel like that takes a lot of patience, to be able to adapt to, whatever we're going through at the moment. But some people don't make it through that, and I think sometimes, we can be selfish, and I think that's probably the main killer, of the marriage, is the selfishness, um, and just wanting what you want and how you want it. And if he or she can't meet what you want, or if they don't do what you're requesting, I don't know. It's just a lot of communication, I feel, that needs to happen. It's a lot of sacrifice that needs to happen. And you got to be okay with that. And if you're not, then somebody's not happy.
Hmm.
You know, um, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just kind of my
I,
thoughts.
no,
Yeah.
no. You both from your own individual perspectives gave a lot of, dropped a lot of gems there. I mean, again, for that person or that couple who's sitting back, listening to this, and they're like, we're ready to throw this towel in. We're done. Because like I said, it's not always about, like I said, infidelity or finances. Sometimes
Right.
they just, maybe because they failed to communicate, maybe because they failed to keep things fresh and exciting, that they've allowed the situation to get stale, the marriage to get stale.
Mm-hmm.
And it has started to draw them apart, that now they're just sort of coexisting with one another, almost like
Yeah.
roommates versus husband and
Yeah.
wife. And like you said, and it's very easy for that to happen if you're not careful. I mean, time goes by. I mean, and the years, pass, and the next thing you know, you're getting up there. I mean, for my wife and I, it'll be 20 years next year. I can't tell you where 20 went. you
Congratulations on
Yeah.
know,
that.
it's like,
That's
and you can very easily get caught up in the just the muck and of the day
Yeah.
to day. We go to work, we come home, we pay the bills, we eat, we go sleep, and that just be it. And before you know it, like you said, months could go by, even years can go by where you haven't done the little stuff, like date night or
Right.
things like that. And then Q, you spoke of earlier about of course the God part of it. We've been talking about that all along. If God wasn't in it, or he hasn't, has been, you've been kind of intermittent with him as far as your marriage is concerned. That's probably a big piece of why whatever's
Yeah,
going on
that's
is
it.
going on. And so
Mhm.
if you being honest and saying, well, no, he really ain't been a part of it, it's just been us. Well, then, yeah, you might want to just try to fight a little bit longer, just because you've left a critical
Mm,
component out of the picture. And so, as you stated, Q, whether if you haven't been attending church, maybe attending church, perhaps seeking some type of counseling, if you will, and ideally godly counseling. Somebody who is of a Christian, faith, because they can speak to you at a much deeper level than just somebody who may be not. There's not no knock against counselors, but all counselors are not Christian, foundationally based,
right.
believers. So they may be giving you the textbook answers, but for marriage, you don't just need textbook. I need some biblical, insight as to
Yeah,
what we're
yeah.
doing. And again, instead of me saying, well, what he's doing or what she's doing that's making me mad, when you're at that verge of looking at possibly, ending a marriage, really what you have to focus on is, what am I doing? What am I
Yeah.
failing to do? I got to
That's
like
it.
make it about
Right.
me and not the other person, because it takes two. It takes
Yeah.
two in this. I mean, I might have a laundry list of stuff that you're not doing, but I'm sure there's something where I done dropped the ball on that may be a key component to, the way things have not been working out. So you really just want to exhaust all your options, and it's worth you doing it. And yes, as Kat spoke of earlier, there are certain things that even biblically speaks to, justification for you to call it quits, whether it's infidelity, whether it's, abuse of some sort. Nobody's telling you to stand there and take licks, in the name of Jesus. But,
Right.
at the same time, again, you have to identify, you want to try to get to the source of where these triggers, where this pain is coming from. Because sometimes the issues in the marriage isn't even about the marriage. It may be something that you haven't resolved from as far back as childhood.
Right.
Some undealt with issue, trauma, something that you carried into your marriage, that because you didn't take the time to heal, you didn't take the time to address it, you've now kind of contaminated your marriage because of some unresolved stuff that
Right.
has nothing to do with your husband, has nothing to do with your wife. It's just some stuff you had that you just never got out, that you just never had a chance to deal with. And we hear these stories all the time, whether it's somebody was molested, abused, some type of addiction of some sort from the past. It could be a variety of different things. So you want to make sure that just like you want to make sure that you've been comprehensive in your decision to get married. You want to be
Hmm.
equally comprehensive in terms of, if you're thinking about calling it quits before you let that thing go. Make sure this is the right move to make, that you've done everything that's within
Right.
reason to do.
Yeah.
Again, nobody's expecting you to stay in something that your life could be in danger, or something like that. But even in some of the most extreme scenarios where a marriage has gone awry, with God, there are marriages that can recover from, again, infidelity, that can recover from financial challenges, or other, some of those other, not so comfortable moments, that if you got the right counseling, the right support systems, the right people around you, that you can even overcome some of those more egregious, more severe moments. It's possible. You just want to make sure that you've exercised it all. So I appreciate both of your feedbacks on that. So before I let you go, I do want to, of course, we want to, of course, take an opportunity to celebrate anything that you got going on, whether it's within the marriage or just in life in general. But also, if you could give one word, or just a couple of words to as we exit out of this show, to say to couples that if you don't have anything else to make your marriage be in the best position possible to be successful, you gotta have this. What would you say, Q? What would you say, Kat? I'll start with you, Q. What if I don't have nothing else? If it's nothing else that I can focus on, lock in on, I have to have this if I want my marriage to have any shot of sustaining long term through the good, the bad, and everything in between. What would that one thing be?
It will be God. So we talked about that at length in the last question, but it will be God. And I know you said one word, but I'll give you two more words:
Okay.
service and oneness.
Mm,
So those are our two core beliefs around marriage. And Kat touched on how we serve each other earlier, and I talked about the oneness as far as impasses and arguments, and even in the journey to our first home, how important oneness is. So that's the common theme, and it's biblical. Those are the two themes that run through our marriage and that we hold true to. Like she was saying, we serve each other on a daily basis, and we have a heart to serve, and we're proactive in the serving. So when you're doing that, you're constantly showing your partner that they're important, they're thought of, and things like that. And then the oneness just keeps you one, it keeps you together. And so we don't when we tell people we really don't fight, we might have 5 disagreements in a year. People say, "Oh, that's fake." That it might be to you, but that's our reality because
mm,
of how we operate, because we're proactive, we're not reactive. So if you're serving each other every day and you're doing all you can to be one, a lot of the problems that come up when you're not doing that and you're selfish and self-serving, then you're of course you're going to be fighting all the time. So God,
mm.
service, oneness.
All right.
I would say, I guess I got a couple. Being intentional and probably patience.
Mm-hmm.
Being intentional and having patience with each other. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and all of those that you gave are spot on for a healthy, long sustaining marriage. But like you said, at the top of it is God, and beautiful thing about that is if God is at the head, all of the other stuff that we talked about, that patience, that service, that oneness, it all streams down because He is, yeah, as we know, God is love. So
Yeah.
who better to learn love from than the actual source of it?
Yep.
He's the author of it. He's the whole epitome of it. So definitely good stuff. Good stuff. So, like I said, I do want, of course, before I let you go, get a chance to celebrate you at one accomplishment in particular that I'd love for you all to speak to really quick is you got your new podcast out. So tell everybody a little bit about your podcast and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, it's called the Marital BLISS podcast. BLISS stands for Biblical Lessons in Serving Your Spouse, and then also helping you avoid the battle lines introduced by self-serving. So we really focus again on our core beliefs of service and oneness. We started in August, I believe. God has had this call on our lives for several years, but we just let fear and other busyness keep us from doing it. But we finally entered into a season where we were like, we're going to finally do this thing. We're just going to go and figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we've been doing. And God has blessed us. And so we completed 3 pre-launch episodes. And I credit you with that idea because you did the pre-launch episodes. And so stole that from you. And then we released our first official episode on November 5th. So we're on YouTube, Spotify, Google, and Apple. And our second episode actually goes live this Sunday, November 19th. So we just thank God for the journey. We just want to glorify Him first and foremost. And we just want to show people that our tagline is "Kingdom is the key to marital bliss." So showing people that the keys, what you're looking for, everything we just talked about, is the kingdom of God holds that, and the blueprint is the Bible, and all the instructions are there. So we, through our sharing of our personal testimony and story, and the Word of God, as we dissect and dive into it, we hope people will be able to see that, man, if we follow God, if we lock into this and adopt, the Bible and kingdom principles as our, compass in life, we will be able to get this beautiful marriage that everybody's chasing, but just can't find. So,
yep. No, anything is possible with God on that. So, yes, I would say our anniversary is coming up on December the 10th. We'll be celebrating 12 years of marriage. So we're looking forward to that. Yep. So that's about it. I can't think of anything else.
yeah. And we lost him, like right at the end.
Somewhere in there.
Let's see if he makes it back. Got it right to the end.
Lose the recording if we press anything.
That would be tragic.
I was getting hot for a minute. I'm like, oh, I need the fan. No, I don't.
Got this jacket on.
So they do have school tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why somebody said they were supposed to have school. Like, they have school.